Hi friends, welcome to Book Talk. We often hear this phrase, I need my pound of flesh. Everyone says, no, but I need my pound of flesh. Where does this come from? Can you guess? Well, it's come from William Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. So Merchant of Venice was written sometime way back in 16th century. It also belongs to a time when you had people like Shylock. So the main characters are some 17, 18 in this, but I'm going to tell you something about the main characters. To start with, it is Antonio. He happens to be the prominent businessman of Venice. Venice is in Italy, so the whole setup of this particular drama is in Italy. Then you have Bassanio, who happens to be his very dear friend, and he's also the suitor of Portia, who happens to be a very, very rich heiress, and she of a marriageable age. And later on, Bassanio marries this girl, Portia. Now you have Gratiano, who again is a friend of Antonio, and Bassanio in love with Nerissa, and later he marries this girl, Nerissa. Then you have Lorenzo, friend of Antonio and Bassanio, in love with Jessica, and later husband of Jessica. Then you have Portia herself. She is a very rich heiress, later a wife of Bassanio. And then you have Balthazar, who happens to be the servant of Portia, but in the play, the Portia, when she enters the courtroom, she disguises herself as Balthazar and then enters the court. And then you have Shylock himself, who is a very miser of the biggest order, a moneylender, and he is a cutthroat. That's all I can say about him. So then you have Jessica, who happens to be Shylock's daughter. And then you have other characters which I'm not going to take you through. So the play starts somewhere in Italy, and in Venice rather. And Venice, we all know, is a very beautiful place. If you've not been there, you must go there. And so Bassanio is a young Venetian of noble rank. He wishes to marry this person, Portia, from Beaumont, and for which he requires, he's a rich guy, but he's lost all his money, so he requires some 3,000 bucks in the local currency. It's something like ducat. And so he approaches his friend Antonio. Now Antonio, like all the time in previous years, he has helped him, and repeatedly he has helped him, but this time his ships are off to Tripolis, Indies, England, and here and there, so he doesn't have any money, cash. He's not cash rich. So he says that, boss, you get some money lender to give you the money, I'll sign the bond. Bassanio agrees to that, and he looks for a money lender, and that's how Shylock comes into picture. Now Shylock has a kind of an enmity with this fellow Antonio, because he knows that Antonio is a very good businessman. He's a Sida Sada businessman, and he charges very less interest, and that spoils his business. So Shylock has a lot of problems with this guy. And to be in the playwright language, Antonio has already antagonized Shylock through his outspoken anti-Semitism. So this is what the equation of these two are. But anyhow, somehow Shylock is ready to give that loan to Bassanio, but he says, if I'm not going to charge any interest, then I'm going to take a pound of flesh out of Antonio's body if he is unable to pay the debt on time. And meanwhile, this guy Bassanio discourages Antonio that don't take this kind of a loan, but Antonio, under some kind of a mood, goes and signs the bond. And after this, Bassanio goes off to Beaumont, and where he goes for this particular swamber that you can say in Hindi language. So there are other princes also who have come for this particular wedding. One happens to be the Prince of Morocco. Then you have another guy who's a prince of some other state, and Aragon is the place. The Prince of Aragon has also come, and Bassanio has also reached. So there are many people who are vying to get Portia's hand, and Portia's father has some 3 kind of caskets. It's some kind of a game or some kind of a skill that you got to choose the casket which are gold, silver, and lead. And if the person who chooses the right casket is going to get Portia's hand. So the Morocco and the other chap, they are not able to get the right kind of a casket, so they are out of the game. Bassanio calls out for lead, and he wins Portia. Now, meanwhile, back in Venice, Antonio's ships have not come back, and the due date for paying the loan has come. And so there is a letter which Bassanio receives in Beaumont that Antonio is unable to pay the loan because his ships have not returned. He is cash strapped, and so now Shylock is dragging him to the court for the pound of flesh. Now this upsets Bassanio as well as Portia. Now Portia is married to Bassanio, so Portia then decides to go to the court herself, disguised as a servant, disguised, and fight the case. So she goes to the court, and there in the court of this guy, the Duke of Venice is the person who has the authority to preside over this particular case. Shylock puts across his point that it is in the bond that if this guy is unable to pay my loan, I have the authority to take a pound of flesh out of his body. So the court agrees. Court cannot rule out this because Antonio has signed it. So court almost gives the permission, and Shylock takes his knife and tries to sharpen it and wants to go across to Antonio to cut the flesh out of his body. And in the meanwhile, Portia, who is dressed up as a lawyer, she makes a very valid point to the court and says that okay, Shylock can take the pound of flesh, but he can only take that particular only a pound of flesh, nothing less, nothing more, and he should not drop even a drop of blood on the ground. And if he does that, all his property and goods are going to be confiscated, because he is an outsider, he is a Jew, he is not a Christian, and he is trying to harm a Christian. So the court looks at that point and agrees that yes, Shylock can take a pound out of this Antonio's body, but he cannot drop a drop of blood. And so when this happens, Shylock abandons his plan and says that okay, I will not take a pound of flesh out of his body, but then I'll take my money. And so in the meantime, this actually is the main story, and it gives you a very big point that in those times, in 16th century, these things used to happen, that people used to aspire for a pound of flesh if the other person is at a default. So later on, of course, Shylock loses his property also, and half of it goes to the government, and half the Antonio can use, and till he's alive, and later on it passes to his children, that is Lorenzo and Jessica. And of course the judge also shows some remiss and allows the part of the property that is to go to the government for Antonio for Shylock to use. So all these things happen, but it's a beautiful play, and just in case you've not read it, you can read it, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this particular play. And of course, as far as William Shakespeare is concerned, if you've not read this play, you might have read some other play. So I wouldn't dispute on that point. But yes, each of his plays are a class by itself. So friends, if you like this particular play, kindly share it, kindly kindly also subscribe our channel. I am not able to give you anything more beyond this because of time constraint, because we generally are trying to keep our videos short and brief. So thank you once again.